SLO R&D podcast, episode 49. This is Alex Caravan, Driveline Baseball, manager of data science. Drinking my leftover coffee with pine tar from the pre-recorded Tyke Green episode. Lindley.
Lindley, sports engineer, Driveline Baseball, drinking a dry January coffee and water.
And I'm Anthony Brady, Driveline Baseball, biomechanist. Mentioned it on the podcast we recorded earlier, which you won't see till next week. But for Christmas, I got myself, Lindley, and Caravan 3 months of the craft beer club, so we could get some, a more diverse beer selection on the podcast. And so I'll be drinking one of those today. It's Three Sheep Brewing in Wisconsin, I believe. It's the Bon Bon Chocolate Milk Stout. I don't really like stouts, but this was the lowest percentage beer that's came, and I've already had one earlier today at noon, so keeping it pretty tame. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying today we got a special guest, Ethan Moore, joining us from Colorado. Ethan, great to have you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
And Ethan, I'm assuming probably a really high proportion of our fan base knows you, but for the 1%, 2% I might not know you. You kind of want to give a little bit of your background and what you're up to right now?
Yeah, sure. So I just graduated college. I was a college student manager, kind of statistics, data science, analytics type guy. Was a student manager, like I said, at at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo out in the Big West. And I just graduated from there and am moving on to now work for the Minnesota Twins in their front office. And I'm going to be starting that in about a week. So looking forward to that. But right now, just kind of in a transition period and just hanging out basically.
And I was going to say, Ethan, also a vet from the Elite 8 of the R&D Twitter bracket. I put it together a couple weeks ago. Dude, you honestly, I was kind of asking internally. I was asking people who they thought were going to win. You were a popular pre-bracket favorite, man. You just ran on Jake Stone, right?
Yeah, it was a super close matchup. Yeah. Credit to him, but yeah, I was hoping to go a little bit farther in the bracket, but that's okay.
Dude, it would have been a good twist for you to reveal take off the mask like I was a public analyst all along or whatever, announce the Twins call.
Yeah, I didn't want to get disqualified. I was sitting on the information that I was going to be joining a team, but I didn't want to get DQ'd, so I held on to it for a little bit.
Yeah, it was a super. Ethan, first question I was going to ask you, I guess, since I know, I don't know how many our listeners know, but I know just kind of how many mini evolutions you've gone through. You talk about it a little bit in your how to get a job in MLB front office piece, which I reached out to you. I thought it was really, really well written. I was curious if you'd kind of delve into that a little bit, just kind of give a quick summary and some personal throwbacks to how you grew as an analyst, what you changed proactively, your path there.
Yeah. So I wrote this article about, my journey and going through the baseball front office hiring process and just trying to relay my experiences. I did that for 3 years, going through basically 3 cycles of trying to get hired by teams, and learned a lot in that experience. So, I think a lot of people want to work in baseball. They want to, be in a front office, helping their favorite team win. I was one of those people in high school. Like at the end of high school is kind of when I decided that this is something I wanted to do. And so I did some research about, what does it take to get a job like this? And the bar is pretty high. There's a lot of people that you're competing with who are trying to do this. So it was a little intimidating, but I was like, all right, I'm studying statistics in school, which is one of the main kind of avenues into the game. So that was good. I had been working with the Cal Poly baseball team. So, getting experience with getting experience or being around baseball is important as well. So I felt like I had those boxes kind of checked, and, I was working on those. For me, the big kind of things that I had to do on my own were learning how to code and doing some networking, meeting other people in the industry. And those are,
which, by the way, really quick, our mutual friend Christian Hook called you one of the best, most natural networkers. So there's a compliment. I don't know if you want to drop any nugs about how to network properly also, but that's I heard it from the Cincinnati Skyline Chili man himself. So
well, I mean, if Christian said it, it must be true. No, but I appreciate that. That's high praise. I don't know. I mean, early on, I was just like, I just want to learn as much as I can about what these people do. I was just cold Twitter DMing people early on. Like, I was just like, hey, I'd love to chat. What's going on? And a lot of people didn't respond, and that's okay. But a lot of people did. And I learned from that. And I probably overstepped my bounds a few times, like, DMing people that are way out of my range. But yeah, that's okay. It's mostly just like being willing to learn and ask good questions. And I don't know, I think that's what's helped me succeed in that way. But yeah, I don't know.
You wanna talk? I'm really curious and impressed about you and Caravan both studying statistics in college. I'm really curious to hear, like, what are some of the things you took from your stats classes that you applied to baseball? Or is it just mostly like, are there anything like specific things, or is it mostly just a foundational knowledge of statistics and how it works that you apply to your baseball projects?
Yeah, I think in some ways, like, a lot of the projects I do are just, they're just statistics type problems that I'm solving using baseball data. So in that way, in my coursework, I got a lot of experience solving statistics problems that weren't baseball related. So now I can just kind of pull from that experience and use those skills to solve baseball questions. But I think a big thing that I took from my education was like the idea of like process-based versus results-based evaluation of just like anything that happens. Statistics kind of helps us understand that if one outcome happens, that doesn't mean that it was likely to happen. And instead you should be thinking about, like, if this situation happened 1,000 or 10,000 times, what would we be likely to see? So I think in baseball, a lot of the times when I started working, or when I started, getting experience in baseball, a lot of the times something that was very unlikely to happen would happen. And then there'd be like this knee-jerk reaction to like prevent that from happening again, without really an understanding of like, our process is good, we just happen to get a bad result. So that's kind of the big thing for me is emphasizing, look, you just need to have a good process, and in time, on average, you'll get good results, right? So don't be like knee-jerking and changing things based on unlikely things that happen.
That's awesome. And you said you had to teach yourself to code. Is there any, you code in R, correct? Did you get any of that in school, or is all of that kind of personal projects and kind of guided by what you saw as the industry standard for coding and statistics?
Yeah, so I did take one main class in R my sophomore year of college. That was just kind of the basics. You learned base R, the tidyverse, which is one of the more important like subsets of things you can do in R. Basic like visualizations, like making graphs, and then Shiny apps, which is kind of like a web development capability in R. And it was kind of the basics. And I didn't really do anything in R in school after that one class. Everything else was basically just me kind of being like, how do I do this? And then looking it up. And then just doing that for like 2 years until I knew how to do more stuff. So there's a lot of great resources out there. I didn't use any of them for learning R or learning how to code at the very beginning, but I've definitely used them to kind of like develop as a coder.
Do you have a favorite project you've put out that's been like public open source? Whether, I mean, I guess like an easy one might just be your predictive pitch quality metrics. So maybe even more specifically, like maybe like a specific blog or an idea that you got like really good feedback off of, or that helped you grow.
Yeah. The one thing that kind of stretched my boundaries a good amount was I did a project where I was trying to predict what the next pitch type would be. Given like, say you're in the third pitch of an at bat, you've seen 3 pitches, you know who the pitcher is, you know who the batter is, you know the situation in the game. What is the pitch type that's going to come next? The idea there was kind of like, if I can build a really good model and we can guess, with like 90 or 95% certainty what the pitch is going to be, maybe someone would want to relay that to the batter and tell them that. Kind of like Astros style, but hopefully more ethical. I did run into some ethical issues there. I was like, if this is good, should we even use this? And that was very interesting as well. But what I learned from that was like, it's very important when you're doing projects to ask like, how can this help a team? Because there's a lot of stuff that I had done in the past, that I've put out there publicly that I was like, this is cool. Look at this. I thought it was cool, but it didn't really help. It wasn't clear how a team could use that to help them win. So that was the project where I was like, okay, I'm going to do something that I think could directly help a team win. And it didn't go over very well. It wasn't a great model, but it was kind of more of like a proof of concept. So maybe someone could improve that.
I actually think I remember that piece, and I think it's pretty interesting because one thing I've always found hard to apply to baseball is stuff like that, like naive Bayes type like analyses, rather than just more classic regression type models, right? Like the idea of changing your posterior probability distribution based on like knowledge of what just happened. And for me, I've always been hesitant to put too much weight into that, just because the more finally you carve it up, the smaller your samples grow, and you're like, okay, like what did someone throw in their third pitch following a fastball? If that fastball is a predominant pitch and they're facing a righty, and then also adjust for like home stadium, catcher, whatever, right? Like there's like a ton of stuff you can go down and kind of lose your head. And I don't remember necessarily the details of your model, but I remember I liked how you laid everything out really clearly too. Like gave a perspective on, you were trying to kind of fine tune this combination, like control for this probability, and then I think you were laying out like the model accuracy compared to like just classifying the most common type pitch, which I think is like kind of a basic first step to do for those kinds of problems. But yeah, even if like not super successful or not super like popular, like I really do like that line of thinking. I've been trying to like figure out how to best apply it in baseball as well. Yeah,
thank you. I agree. Like the sample size was definitely an issue, where, like you said, it got so specific that the model wasn't really good, and that's one of the reasons it wasn't good. And I had also just learned about Bayesian statistics, which is a kind of a totally separate way to do statistics and solve problems. So I was just kind of trying to test it out myself, and it may not have gone over super well, but I think I learned something from it, so it was worth it.
As a general rule of thumb, I guess this is a question for you, Caravan, too, about when just like even just random investigations, what is is there a rule of thumb where you decide when to stop getting, or basically how specific to get, like, or for example, like how many bins do I create for this investigation or stuff like that? Is it just strictly based off sample size, or are there other considerations that you'll make to determine basically how granular to get in the descriptions?
You go first, then I'll back it up.
Okay, yeah. I haven't done a ton of stuff with like binning necessarily, but in general, I kind of am driven by like, first of all, how accurate can we get this? So, picking some measure of how good your model is, whether that's RMSE or like F1 score or whatever. And or like area under the curve, for example. And, basically just trying to maximize whatever that is that tells you how good your model is. But then also having some other considerations in there, like how long does this model take to run? Like I have made some models that it's like, I could do a better version, but it's going to take 3 days versus 3 hours. And it's like that, I'm not going to make that change. So that's kind of how I've approached it so far. It might not be the best way, but Caravan, how do you do it?
Well, I was going to say specifically for the buckets, I think we probably end up doing a lot of like surface level bucket type work at Driveline because we get so many, like almost any pitching trainer or hitting trainer will kind of come on and be like, oh, how does bat speed correlate to like oppo home runs, or how does like Varus correlate to like hard throwers, to pitching velo. So there's like a ton of correlational analyses that are like A, really low hanging, and B, also can kind of mislead and are like not always super relevant because we have like such a wide variety of athletes. We have like elite arms, we have youth, we have a bunch of high schoolers, a bunch of college players. So typically what like myself and Dan O'Coin kind of like started doing from the get-go was splitting stuff up in buckets to get like different insights based on the caliber of player. So like splitting up by playing level, splitting up by like starting starting velo, starting bat speed, starting EV. And then usually what I try to do is just make sure the distribution of the data in that bucket like makes sense and kind of follows the general population distribution, and that the buckets split themselves make sense. I'm not just like arbitrarily choosing like 83.7 to like, to kind of like fit in a analysis I wanted to shoehorn. But like, again, like it's like we're at least in a place where we have so many people asking so many questions that it's like easy to just kind of, you can spend like 5 minutes and just like cycle through and just give them answers out, but that'll just like confuse them or lead them down like rabbit holes. So like a lot of times I have to be like really thorough on even like really small, simple questions. What do you think, Lindley? You've done a lot of like kind of statistical work too.
But I don't know, dude.
I'm saying, what's your read on what I just said?
No, I mean, it makes sense. I like the applicability thing because it's easy to like typically a very surface level way for me was to just adjust like specific to binning, just adjusting it based off sample size, make sure there's enough samples in each of the bins, but then balancing that between like the whole sensible buckets thing. So if you're binning by velo, then like might be good, like hot, like firm V2, hard throwers being over 90 miles an hour, like should middle range throwers be between 90 and 85 or 90 and 82 or 90 and 80, even if like the sample is going to be way greater in there. So I didn't have a good, I don't have a good method for that, but typically it would be like trying some balance between making sure there's good enough sample representation in all of them and like balancing that with some reasonable like applicable cutoff.
When did you first start working with the SLO baseball team, Ethan, and how was that process? Were they like pretty eager and positive about it when you first started? You kind of have to like get your way in. Probably more the latter. I came to them, so they weren't really looking for someone who does what I do. So I came to them the fall of my freshman year and just said like, hey, I'd love to, help out however. And they were like, great. We've got, we need one more person to help prep the field pregame. I was like, all right, sweet. So my first year I was painting the lines on the field before games and like charting the game on, I think it was like iScore or like one of those apps to just like keep score of the game, which was pretty crazy considering where we are now. But yeah, over time, just every year they made more investments in technology. Just before last season, which was shortened by COVID, we got a TrackMan unit installed at the stadium, which was awesome. We did not enter the data sharing network, which is a lot of the benefit of having a TrackMan unit. So that kind of hampered us a little bit. But yeah, we so I'm not involved in the team anymore since graduating. But when I graduated, the team had, I believe, 10 managers growing from basically nothing when I showed up. So that was pretty cool. One thing I was just thinking of just now, just a completely question out of the blue, but I was curious your thoughts on this. Since like I know we both have spent quite a lot of time like playing around with like public MLB data, Statcast data. If you could make one change, or like if you could like control for one thing when using public data, what would it be? And I'll give you my answer first, so you can kind of think on it, because I know this is almost like an interview question. But I was just thinking about it now because you're talking about like the growing pains when you start setting up a system. I still think loud car in the background. I think this has gone a lot better, and I've read MLB AM's articles on this, but I still think pitch classification can be a total mess at the MLB level, and even something I've always thought like this can't be that hard. Even something where like you verify what each pitcher like calls a pitch, you like establish like what their pitch arsenal is before a season, before a game, whatever. If they implement something new, you can kind of control for that. You put a dummy variable, you later like check with them. But just something where like to mitigate, again, I think this happens way less, but to mitigate like some pitcher calling it a curve and a Statcast calling a slider, and there's like no in between, you know?
Yeah.
So that's something I was thinking, but I don't know. Do you have any thoughts to my on the spot question?
Yeah, well, so I mean, I definitely agree with you. That's a topic that I did a presentation on at SABR seminar in 2019. Was basically just like MLB AM's pitch classifications don't really make sense from an analysis perspective. I think they do a really good job of doing what they're trying to do, which is basically tell the fan what the pitch type was. But if you're a hitter, those pitch classifications are really not accurate at all. So I agree with that. My one kind of like niche data gripe is that in college TrackMan data, they don't have any indication of where the base runners are, which is really specific. But so for any given pitch, you don't know where the base runners are, which is something that is really important to know when you're trying to figure out like run values.
You're saying like who's on first, second, or third? Or you're saying like where they are on the line between like first, second, third?
No, like whether there's a runner on first.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just a 0 or a 1. They don't have that, and so that made my life like very difficult when trying to derive like linear weights, which is really important for the kind of stuff I was trying to do. So that's my my version of.
That's a really good one. That's a good one. That's what we had to do for the College War stuff we put out.
Yeah.
And what it ended up being was David Beskey, who's now full-time R&D. At the time was like part-time R&D, part-time CR. Really smart dude. Dan and I worked with them. I mean, it was mostly him to kind of like scrape together play-by-play data of D1, D2, D3. And then we were matching based on like unique combinations between that and like a ton of TrackMan share data we had. And then like mapping over. But I mean, dude, it was a mess. It was just like weeks of work.
Yeah.
And like weeks of work that like we would not have been able to do if we didn't have Beskey working on it, like, you know, in his time.
Yeah. I realized when you guys put out the College War, which was awesome, by the way, like, I realized that you would have had to have gotten over that hurdle. So congratulations on that.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about with moving into your role with the Twins?
Yeah. So I can't say too much about like what specifically I'll be doing, and I don't even quite know a ton of details yet. But like the opportunity to work for a major league team is something I've been really excited about for a long time. For me, the biggest thing is like being able to work with other professional, baseball analysts and get that professional feedback on my work. I think it's something I've been kind of trying to do for a while, is put work out there in the public and try to get feedback on that. But it's not really systematic, and, some projects no feedback, and some projects get too much feedback in some ways. And so I'm really just excited about having kind of a network of people who, it's kind of like part of their job to quality control me and who I can learn from. So that's kind of, I think, one of the main benefits of working for a team and being part of the Twins are one of the larger employers of analysts, I guess. Yeah. Among all the teams. So that's kind of a reason why I was interested in going there.
Josh Kalk, right? Josh Kalk is still like pretty heavily involved there.
Yeah, he's involved. I haven't gotten to meet him yet, but I would love the opportunity to do so.
Dude, are you going to be able to still do any open access work, or are you still going to do some on the side and try to push that out, or do you think that might not have time for it or deprioritize?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think probably not. Just based on what other people have done when they join teams. There's like teams work so hard to gain a competitive advantage, which in like if you're an analyst, that basically just means knowing something that other teams don't know. So by putting that out there, I think that can kind of potentially hurt the team or undermines the other work that you're doing to gain a competitive advantage. So I'm not sure. I would probably not expect to be putting too much out there, but maybe something that's not baseball related would be cool. Maybe if I wanted to do some other kind of sports model or something like that, we'll see.
Ethan, I was going to say another good answer, I think, for what you should be looking forward to that I'm really jealous. Like probably the one thing I'm most jealous of that I don't have access to as a MLB analyst is, dude, you're going to have access to so much data. It's going to be like, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak for like the Twins department and you come in and be disappointed, but I assume there's going to be like, a database setup, data cleaning processes. You're going to have like, paired tech data like in game, dude. Like, like blast, hit tracks, K-Vest, all like in situational with like really high level talent. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited about that for you, dude.
Yeah. I think in general, the quality of data that teams have is just crazy from what I've heard.
Yeah.
So as an analyst, I mean, you really can't ask for much more than that.
Are you more excited for scouting and evaluation or for player development? Because I feel like they're obviously have a lot of similarities, but I feel like there can be a pretty clear distinction between the two.
Oh, also, by the way, really quickly, Brady, how are we doing, dude? Is the YouTube thing?
I think we're good now.
Are we good now?
The connection.
What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen to this YouTube version, bro?
The connection looks chilling now, so sorry for anyone who had some buffering issues early on. Not sure what's going on. It looks like it's on YouTube's end, so it's kind of out of my hands.
Okay, as you were.
Yeah.
Kyle, about scouting versus player development, like I have more experience on the player development side, working for a college team and like kind of having to figure out what certain players are like working on and what they should be working on and stuff like that. I'm excited about the opportunity to learn more about the scouting and evaluation side. That's something that I haven't really done too much of. We did a good amount of advanced scouting at Cal Poly, but it wasn't really like who's good. It was more like, how can we get this guy out kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to learn more about that. I think that's probably the like part of, or the aspect of baseball that I know least about. So I think that learning more about that should help me, be more well-rounded in that way.
Did you work more with pitchers or hitters?
At Cal Poly, I worked more with pitchers. The first investment that the team made in technology was Rapsodo, which I think is probably common for a lot of colleges, a lot of college programs. And I just read all the Driveline blogs. So thanks to you guys. But learning pitch design and just kind of like what's on the Rapsodo screen, what's good and what's maybe, something that we could improve upon. So for the first probably year after we got the Rapsodo, it was mostly pitchers. And then I kind of spent the last year or so trying to catch up with the hitters, which obviously is much harder given that we don't have as much data on hitters for for practice and stuff like that.
Are there like large areas that you kind of wish like Cal Poly, like you wish you were able to experiment more with at SLO? Like to give you an example, like one thing we only recently started doing was like mass contact tracking in gym, right? Because we'll have hitters go off of pitching machines and we'll measure like exit velocity, bat speed, a bunch of stuff off it. But it's hard to like measure like approach based stats, and then it's hard to emulate that as well. So I was curious if you had anything similar there that you like almost wish you could have done at Cal Poly but didn't get a chance to do.
Yeah, I think just like it would be cool to get a better process down for like figuring out which players are like basically just most deserving of playing time. I think that a lot of the metrics that we had for like practice, like who's practicing well, didn't necessarily translate to like who's going to do well in the game. Maybe they were measuring like effort or like, success in practice, which, as we know, like doesn't necessarily mean that those are the guys who are going to succeed in games. So probably just like having some better KPIs, and structuring the practices a little bit different. I mean, I'm not the coach, but like just being able to kind of quantify practice a little bit better to be more representative of game.
Just for a thumbnail, what Ethan Moore would have done differently if he was coaching Cal Poly.
Yeah, no, I don't want to put myself in that situation. But
what year did you guys get the Rapsodo?
We would have gotten the Rapsodo in before the 2018 season.
Okay, so did you feel like, so compared to year one when you guys got the Rapsodo to, I guess, last year you were still working with the team before COVID shut things down?
Yeah.
Did you notice like a difference in the players that came in, their knowledge base in terms of like Rapsodo related metrics, like spin axis, efficiency, etc.? So like 2018 when you guys got it, was it like no one had any idea? And then freshmen, sophomores that came in maybe last year, did they start to have an idea or like a foundational knowledge of that type of stuff? Or is it still pretty like players don't know what's going on kind of a thing?
I think it's more, well, at least so we had a really small sample size, not that many new pitchers coming in, and not that many years. So for me, it was more just like no one knows what's going on. And I said 2018, I meant to say 2019. And then, so I was really only there using Rapsodo the fall before 2019 and the fall before 2020. So really only 2 years. So I wouldn't really, bank on what I'm saying as being the truth representative elsewhere, but I definitely see how that trend would be like happening elsewhere. I think generally high school seniors know more about Rapsodo than they did 4 years ago when Rapsodo didn't, barely existed. So,
Exactly.
I mean, you guys might be better suited to answer that question because do you guys work with high schoolers at all? And have you seen kind of like a trend that way?
Yeah. We have a decent amount. I think like primarily, college still and a lot of pro, but the main reason I ask is because I am just generally interested if like, at Driveline, we wouldn't necessarily be the best suited to ask that question because we have like our own bubble of like, if you're coming here, you're looking for that kind of information, right? So more so is just like to get the pulse of like what's out there in terms of like how common knowledge is this starting to become? Because years ago when I was still in school, like no one had any idea spin axis, whatever that is. And even just like recently in the last couple of days, it seems like, the future college baseball pitchers are going to know what like seam shifted wake is, right? And that learning curve is just like accelerating quickly, trying to figure out like how fast kind of a thing,
Yeah, at Driveline, we don't let you in the door if you don't know what spin axis is. We go. What's the difference between spin direction, tilt, and spin axis? And if you can't answer it, you can't get an assessment.
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty good point. We do actually have Caravan was joking, but we do have an athlete onboard thing that we've rolled out and is a big part of our program. Now we have
Langus on board.
Yeah, basically it's a course that athletes are required to complete before or during the first week that they're here, basically to help learn things like spin axis and pitch design metrics and things like that. Because theoretically, the idea is that a smarter or more informed athlete is going to train and see better results from their 6 weeks or whatever their stay is here.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome idea. From my experience, it seems like you guys would probably be spending a lot of time describing the same few concepts to every single person that walks in the door. So it makes sense to just like give that to them all up front and say, like, here, figure it out,
Yeah. I think you're actually in a pretty, an interesting position to get an idea of the like impacts or effects of that kind of knowledge? Because I mean, when I look at pro ball and a lot of what's going on there, I don't anticipate that there's a lot of athlete education necessary for development. You know, like they're already typically really good. If you can make a change to maybe like a pitch characteristic without them knowing, like you're probably better off there, you know, like big leaguers or high profile, draft picks or whatever. Like you don't really want to, dome them up or give them too much information. Whereas I would guess that in the college setting where you just came from, there was like a lot of athlete education just for you to be able to like talk with those guys in terms of like, hey, this matters. You need to do this. Here's why we're trying to make those changes. So it's like, it's a pretty interesting dynamic that, it would be interesting to check your pulse like a few months from now and see like, how much athlete education is there? Do you guys not really worry about it? That kind of a thing,
Yeah, I mean, at least in college, there was definitely a discussion to be had about like, should every athlete be receiving all of this information?
Exactly, yep.
It definitely makes sense for you guys because, like you said, Driveline is kind of selecting for players who do want that kind of information. That's why they're going to Driveline. But I think there's also another population of players where it's like, do not tell them anything.
Exactly, yeah.
Like a couple cues. And that's where, obviously really good coaching comes in. So, not every player wants to, be taking these steps to learn all like the cutting edge stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't have any insight on what teams are doing right now, but I'll be interested to see that as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any, are there a couple of bigger ideas that you think will change the way pitchers or hitters will either train or approach competition in the next couple of years? For example, an easy example would be seam shifted wake. Like, do you think there are any ideas that are kind of on the horizon that you think are really going to change the game?
I do. This is kind of $1 million question,
Yeah.
Dude, you got to pay Josh Scalc for Ethan answering this question. You can't just ask him on a podcast, bro.
Yeah, that's
I don't know if I want to spill all the beans, but like, I think that the next time that baseball development is going to change the way that it has, so quickly in the last few years, I think it's pretty closely related to like what technology is both available and affordable at a wide scale. So, there are some technologies now that are super helpful that are not really accessible. And there are probably some really cool technologies that haven't been invented yet or haven't been brought to the world yet. So, not to say that there's not anything to any benefits to be had from the technology we already have, but it seems like people like you guys are working really hard to get all the juice you can out of these technologies. So every time something new comes out, which like I'm sure something will pretty soon, then I think that's kind of where the big gains can be made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that makes sense. Sorry,
I thought you were gonna pitch Ethan on a gaze tracking experiment with the twins, dude.
Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Gaze tracking.
No, yeah, that's one of them. I'm really interested to see what you guys are doing there. I mean, I'm personally like a lot of my research you may have noticed is focused on like the batter pitcher matchup. And I think there's kind of a big question mark out there. That's just like, why do hitters do what they do? I had an article that kind of tried to answer the question, like, why are hitters sometimes like swinging at curveballs in the dirt and other times like taking fastballs right down the middle, right? Like it doesn't make sense. And there's something going on in hitters' brains that's, kind of causing that inconsistency. And I don't know what it is right now. So that's kind of something I'm interested in learning more about. But I feel like gaze tracking is a really cool example of like how we can start to quantify what a hitter's thinking or at least what they're perceiving. Mm-hmm. A quote that's kind of been passed down to me a couple times through the grapevine, but James Click said 80% of baseball happens in the strike zone. And I agree with that. I kind of have not really found myself all that interested in like defensive metrics or kind of things outside of like what happens on a pitch. So, I think that the next kind of big development thing is going to happen within like the batter pitcher matchup.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Gauge tracking is a tough one. I think it's like, I'm really excited for it. I'm really, really excited for it. I think measuring vision is important and everything, but I just get worried that even once we figure out how to measure, Anthony tweeted about this a couple of days ago, but once we figure out how to measure vision reliably and accurately, it's just going to lead to even more. I imagine it's going to lead to more questions about actual perception. Like we can see where the hitter's pupils are, but does that really tell us much about what exactly they're perceiving? So like, I think it probably, it does give us significantly more information. But I think that's a big onion to start peeling back.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was going to say on gauge tracking, which by the way, I don't know if we've ever talked too much about it on the podcast. But I think one of the, like my kind of 2 cents on gauge tracking is also, I think it might be really valuable for clustering hitters and certain types of like gaze behaviors. And then within that cluster, being able to tell if like there's a successful, like that guy had X amount of like saccage between, you know, the ball being released and the ball being hit, or, you know, him swinging a bat, like within that cluster. But because I think like we've done a good amount of gauge tracking info or research. We've had our limitations, but one of the biggest things is just, to me, it seems like such a large sample needs to be collected across hitters of all different types of variety, across different pitchers, across different like platoon matchups, across different like, you know, swing events. Because if you remember, Lindley, when we were breaking it down on a sort of outcome basis, we didn't have like that many hits per se, or that many like different like buckets of talent. We were like, this guy's really good. This guy's much better than everyone else we've gauge tracked on. So what he's doing might be good, or it's literally just because he's already good. So it's just like survivorship bias. This guy's good. It doesn't even matter like what he's doing with his eyes.
Yeah, I think the more likely scenario, which Anthony has also mentioned in the past, is that let's learn the surface level knowledge that we can gain from gauge tracking, like right away. I think is going to be more valuable for pitchers than it is for hitters. I think it's going to like, in order for us to take advantage of vision and perception data for hitters, we have to like really understand it at a deep level and like learn how to train it and get people better at it maybe. Or like learn how it pairs better with pitchers. But pitchers, as soon as they see, if we with any confidence can say this is where a hitter's looking at like during an at bat, it's like it becomes a lot easier to be deceptive and take advantage of that. So
yeah, there's just gonna be so much incentive to like exploit that knowledge immediately. You know, like I remember even with the EEG stuff in the past, like with talking with Ochard and the hitting guys about it, was like, yeah, this is going to be really great for hitters if we figure something out, but just know as soon as the pitching guys get a hold of this, they're going to exploit the shit out of it. Like, it's just going to be the nature of it, you know? But I mean, I guess like to your point though, that still happens within the strike zone. That's a really good, you know, I've been thinking about that too in terms of like, other stuff outside of that, especially because Hawkeye being able to do some like kinematic stuff outside of the batter pitcher matchup, it's like pretty interesting. Maybe there's some sort of like defensive aspect there, base running too, but again, it just seems like it's going to come down to the most important data points are going to come from what the pitcher does and what the hitter does and what the ball does like between them, you know?
100%. Ethan, what's your interest level and kind of background with biomechanics stuff? Do you think that are you excited for the potential to use the biomechanical data that you might have access to in game? Or like if you have worked with that in the past, and if not, is that something you hope to learn more about so you can?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I don't have a ton of experience with. I think there are a lot of people out there that do have a lot of experience with that, and those people will probably become more and more important, as that data becomes better and more, widely available. I think with anything, it's just like, even if I don't personally have a lot of experience with it, like if I think that it could help the team win, and if there's something exploitable there, then I would definitely want to dive all in and learn all about it and see how it works. I a lot of the times when you guys are talking about biomechanics, it kind of goes over my head with the lingo and stuff. But I trust that there's a lot of interesting insights to be had there. I think what ProPlay AI is doing is really cool, with the potential to kind of democratize the biomechanic analysis out there, and just kind of like hold up your phone and be able to get some insights from that. I think it's super cool. So it's like another onion that I have not really started to peel back, and I know a lot of other people have, but even the experts, I feel like still, or at least I think there's still a bit of uncertainty and like kind of things that they want to research but haven't yet. So it seems like a really important topic for the next 5 or 10 or more years of baseball coming up.
Definitely a lot of uncertainty, dude. Definitely a lot of uncertainty.
Still goes over my head, man.
Dude, I think without saying too much, I think we just found out before this podcast we need to correct the bug in our biomech pipeline. We were just talking about it before he came on, so definitely a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, I
biomechanics is 90% troubleshooting, so it goes wrong about 100% of the time. So.
Yeah, well, you guys are kind of out on the front lines. Everyone's just going to steal from you once you figure it out.
Yeah, that is like it's a good point. I was thinking about it when you were mentioning, whoever asked what's kind of next. What do you think is like a groundbreaking thing? I mean, I still think there's a ton in terms of like what's already going on or what's already being popularized within baseball that you can still just like go deeper on, like biomechanics specifically, right? And even like Caravan mentioned this when we were talking with Dan on the podcast about like there's still, I bet maybe there's not as much low hanging fruit now, but even on like the sabermetric side, just data pulls that you can do and investigations you can do on that side. But I feel like on the biomechanics end, it's so like mysterious, or like people don't know enough about what biomechanics is that you can get away with like a lot of BS, But if you try to do that on like the data science end, like the baseball data science community is so big, and I guess it's more just like foundational in some aspects, that like if you put something out that's whack, you're gonna get flamed, But like in biomechanics, you can kind of do that right now. You can just like know a couple buzzwords, drop like kinematics in there, and people are like, "Oh shit," like this guy knows. This guy's a biomechanist.
Yeah, I kind of get that sense too a little bit.
Yeah, it's weird. I think it's one thing that's pretty cool about like ABBS, the American Baseball Biomechanics Society, like trying to start that and make it, I guess, more clear, like create some standards around it. I mean, like SABR has that. I think it's like really important. It probably does set a lot of standards and guidelines in terms of like what actually is, good sabermetric research, because it is such like a quick buzzword that I think you could get away with a lot of BS in there. We have a question actually from Sam Bornstein in the chat. He was asking, what areas of baseball ops / analytics did you work with most at Cal Poly? I think you might have mentioned this, mainly like in the pitching side, but he was also
I can go.
He was also asking where Caravan was, which he's outside of Starbucks in Vegas, I believe.
Ethan first.
Oh yeah, for Sam's my guy. With Cal Poly, the biggest emphasis was on amateur scouting. So that's something that our coaches have been doing for a long time and spending a long time on. So, the opportunity came around for a bunch of students to help them streamline that process. And we used a program called Synergy, which was really helpful. Oh, nice. And then we also BATS, which is a software that we use to kind of like get video for our own players. And then Synergy was video for other teams' players. And it was a lot of like, so we had to do spray charts, sometimes watching video and plotting points manually, which made me feel like Jonah Hill in Moneyball. that we were still doing that in 2019 or whatever. But so the advanced scouting was a big part of it. A little bit of player development here and there. And then a little bit of like strategy, basically like who should we play? Which pitcher should be our starters? Which guys would be better in relief? Who should we play? We had one guy who like we figured out only does well in day games and because he can't see the ball at night, which was interesting. So a little bit here and there, but yeah, it was mostly the emphasis was on advanced scouting.
Nice.
Speaking of vision, did you guys do any vision testing with your players? Like, did you guys use any like Right Eye or any other platforms?
Not that I know of. So I haven't even heard of Right Eye, but there were a lot of opportunities to do things that probably would have helped us out, but I'll count that among that list of stuff that maybe we should have been doing, but yeah, no, we're not.
No, that's super interesting. I think the whole vision thing is really cool. I think that might be more common than we like give credit to with like actual vision problems and that limiting guys' performance or whatever.
Kind of speaking of vision stuff like that, do you find like trajectory models or like vizies, like 3D vizies, like helpful either for yourself or for players? Because I mean, we put out stuff. We're like, I think one of the first people on the market, and obviously a lot of things have come out, but I actually don't really have great perspective. I don't really have great perspective all the time if those things are like useful from an analytics point of view, from a player understanding point of view, from an educational point of view. So I don't know. I was curious what you thought or if you had any perspective on it.
Yeah, I think any visuals that have to do with like pitch trajectory, I've found that those are pretty helpful for players. That's something that a lot of players like maybe see on a broadcast every once in a while. So when you can open it up and be like, here's your arsenal, they're like, like that's amazing. For me, like I don't need to see like a line on the screen to understand what like 20 inches of vertical movement and 8 inches of horizontal movement. Like I get what that means. So I don't really need to see it. And a lot of the times I see like overlays on Twitter where there's like 8 pitches being overlaid with like tunnels and stuff. And I kind of get lost in that. I don't really personally think that it's that helpful analytically to like tell a story. But I've seen a lot of players really like to see kind of like a trail on their ball and understand. I think that helps them understand movement, which is kind of not super intuitive for a lot of players.
Yeah.
The Driveline Edge tool has been in my limited experience using it, it's been pretty sweet.
Also, I was going to ask you really randomly, kind of just one off. Are you still are you still mostly a random forest guy, or like XG boost now, or like kind of what's your favorite go-to recent kind of regression model?
Yeah, I still kind of lean heavy on random forests. I like them a lot. I'm learning a lot more about a bunch of different kind of like branching into a bunch of different machine learning models that I'm expecting to use more in the coming year that are better for solving more specific problems. But yeah, in general, random forest is still kind of my go-to.
Caravan, you just blank, bro? I just cut your ass off.
Yeah, I completely lost my train of thought when you asked that question.
I have another good one.
I was gonna ask, what is your best way to like gauge your material and how it's going to get accepted by or like received or understood by somebody who might apply it, like a coach or a player? Like, do you have a process where you either get feedback from other people or read through it yourself in a different like frame of mind, or like what's your best method there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me, the most important thing when writing or like communicating something is keeping the audience in mind. So like if before I write anything, I figure out like, who do I want to read this? Who do I want to understand this? So if I'm writing an article that I want like other analysts to read, then I can pretty much know right off the bat, this is not going to make any sense for coaches and this is not going to make any sense for players. when I, working with Cal Poly, there were some times where I had to put together like a slideshow for the coaching staff, for example. And it's like, I think I understand like what is more in the coaching staff's wheelhouse versus like an analyst wheelhouse. So I think it's kind of just like being able to switch the language to just speak the audience's language is kind of the biggest thing. So hopefully the audience I'm intending to write for actually gets it. I guess you would just have to kind of have trial and error there to see what works. But in general, yeah, like if I write something not for coaches, like coaches are not going to get it pretty much.
Yeah, because that's been the hardest thing for me starting full time at Driveline, just writing more, not only for Driveline trainers and for athletes that might be here and reading it, but also for the public if it's on a blog. It's really, really tough to really get to make sure you're getting it down or like framing it in a way that it'll be understood correctly.
Yeah, the writing for the public, I think, is the hardest thing to do because there's just such a wide range. Like your audience is basically everyone, right? So you kind of have to like, there's not really a specific person you're writing for. So like, I don't know, that's tough.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the way you laid out. You always laid out really well. Then I feel like it's like the common blurb people throw in, like this section is mathy. Feel free to skip, so you can like kind of fulfill people that like really want to know how you validated a model or what you like really did, but also not have like the casual fan just like completely lose focus as you get to that part. I was going to ask you, kind of hopping around here, but did you? So you only presented at SABR one time in 2019, or did you present multiple times? That was your only time.
Yeah. So I attended SABR seminar in 2018. Okay. Kind of on short notice, and then I was like, oh, I'd love to present at this, so I presented the next year.
Okay. Yeah. How was that experience?
It was cool. It's probably still the presentation that I've given in front of like the most people, and obviously those are all a lot of the people that are there are people that work in front offices, and they're evaluating you. And I had to go at like 8:30 in the morning or something, which was like pretty brutal. I was barely awake. And I think a lot of people there weren't awake either. But it was really cool. That's a great event for networking and just meeting people. And just an awesome event for, the baseball analytics community to kind of come together a bit.
Dude, I'm so bummed. Corona hit the state. I mean, obviously a very small negative casualty of Corona, but
yeah,
the SABR 2020 went remote. Like a week before. I mean, actually, it didn't even go remote, but I was just like, I'm not traveling. But yeah, I ended up presenting remotely, which is a bummer because I love SABR. And you can't get a read at all when you're presenting remotely. I was just like talking to Scott Bush there on the screen, had like one pause the whole time, like waiting for any reaction and got nothing. But yeah.
That's so tough. Yeah, I have not done a presentation on virtually, but it does not sound very fun. So sorry about that you missed out on that opportunity.
Not fun.
Probably get wrapped up. Do you have any questions for us?
Wow.
This is your chance, man. We'll just let it all out. You can get as proprietary as you want with this.
Oh geez. Now I don't want to steal all the secrets, but what's going on with Driveline in the you're going to a couple other non-Washington destinations, right? How is that going?
Come on, man. We can't talk about that. Are you kidding me? Come on, dude.
No, dude, that's a great question. And we did not pay Ethan ask that question, but very relevant to where Anthony and Kyle are about to go right now.
Yep. Lindley and I are actually flying out tomorrow. We're heading to Arizona. We're gonna fly in tomorrow. We're getting tested and quarantining for a couple days, and then we're setting up the mocap lab at one of our like pop-up shop facilities in Phoenix. So we'll be doing some motion capture assessments on some of the athletes training there, and then we have another one in Texas as well. So in Dallas. So we'll finish that up, and then we'll fly to Dallas next week, which is actually why we had to pre-record next week's episode because we'll be on the road. And then so we'll re-quarantine, retest, and then do some motion capture assessments on some athletes in Dallas. So the idea is, just, kind of expand the reach in terms of like athletes and whatnot that we can train geographically, as well as just a little bit of security with the constantly fluctuating restrictions and guidelines that are happening with COVID. So just trying to get access to more athletes and work with more people. And I mean, Phoenix obviously makes sense with, all the spring training and player development facilities there. So lots of opportunities to work with guys. So that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, just curious, how long does it take you guys to like set up the mocap lab?
Oh, I mean, me and Lindley, the dream team, 25, 30 minutes, I think you put us on a stopwatch. We could go from unzipping the first suitcase to a calibration, and I'd say 35 minutes,
We did one trip to Dallas last year, or like a year and a half ago now. I don't know, maybe it was last year. And 3 of us went. So it was Anthony, myself, and Joe.
Oh yeah.
And I think we ended up getting 7, like set up, do 7 motion captures and tear down within like 45 minutes. It was absurd.
Yeah.
But we don't typically have 4 people, or 3 people. So
yeah, we were zooming that day.
Nice.
Yeah, we've got it down pretty pat now, so it's pretty efficient.
That's sweet.
So appreciate you having you on.
I was gonna ask Ethan what his go-to spots to eat are after he helped us get Christian a gift card, dude.
Yeah, that's right.
Want to return the favor at some point in the vague future.
Dude, okay, well, so going to school in California and being from Colorado, I'm huge on In-N-Out Burger. We never had it in Colorado. There was one like 15 minutes from my campus, so we'd go there all the time. And actually, In-N-Out just came to Colorado this year during COVID, so I went there on my birthday just like a month ago during quarantine. Got my favorite burger here in my state. No having to travel in quarantine, so that was kind of cool.
What's your order?
What's your go-to order?
Okay, I usually get double. I'm a plain burger guy. I know it's kind of boring, but
what do you mean plain burger? What do you mean plain burger, dude? Take me through every ingredient.
Just meat and cheese, and then I dip in a lot of ketchup as much as I can.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But I like the quality of the meat. That's basically the only thing that makes In-N-Out Burger, better than anything else. But then I just go fries and sometimes a strawberry shake if I'm feeling it.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Have you ever tried the animal style business?
I have. For me, it's a little much. It's a little bit too much, but to each their own, I guess.
Yeah.
And what's your full MILB hat collection, dude? I heard you had a pretty good one.
Oh yeah, geez, I've been collecting hats mostly from like middle school to high school. All the on-field hats. I tried to go for one for each team, which I got, and that was kind of cool. And then I've kind of just started getting all the cool alternates. So I have a lot now. For a while I was, you wouldn't see me without a hat on, but now it's kind of like I don't really want to wear any of them that aren't twins. So
yeah, it's tough.
I don't know what I'm going to do with all of them, but
do you have a total count? Do you have a total count?
No, I don't have a perfect count. It's probably like 100. It's kind of a lot.
That's absurd.
But
let's go.
I do respect Kyle Lindley's hat collection. I always see you rocking the hats and respect it from afar.
Hell yeah, I appreciate that.
And I just went in the chat. I didn't realize my girlfriend had invited Lindley to move in.
Oh wow!
Have you seen this, dude? Ethan, you got an invite as well, dude.
Oh wow!
Really?
Katie, I'm looking at the. Are you seeing this? I'm looking at the live YouTube chat, and my lovely girlfriend said, "Question for Lindley: do you want to move in Spencer's room?" Oh yeah, Lindley. I don't know if we told you, dude.
All right.
Schneider's moving up in March.
We can wrap this episode.
All
Ethan,
right.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on, dude.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Ethan. We'll talk to you later, man. Bye.